Welcome, Kellogg community. I'm Michaela Doyle with the Kellogg School of Management. Thank you for joining us today for Conversations with Kellogg Leaders featuring Rose Tsou. In this webinar series, Dean Corneli speaks with Kellogg alumni leaders on timely issues and challenges facing the global business community. You can catch up on prior webinars in this series at our virtual events page on the Kellogg alumni website. We will put a link to that site into the chat now. And with that, I'm happy to welcome Dean Francesca Corneli.
Hello, everyone. It's so great to be back with this amazing series and another amazing alumna to just showcase what amazing people we have throughout the world. And she definitely exemplifies really our amazing Kellogg alumni. Rose Tsou has an amazing career and experience in digital media, advertising, and e-commerce, and is now an independent director, but she started at MTV, then she ran Yahoo, APAC, then she was the head of Verizon Media International, and then is now an independent director. And just to exemplify how I always say our alumni are very eclectic, incredible. She also has a brief stint as a pop singer. We might have to ask her about that. And she's also recently wrote a book, a career advice, and leadership, which has amazing place on my table, only I cannot read it because it's in Chinese. So I'm really advocating for an English version of it. But Rose, thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Hi, Dean Francesca Canali. It's such an
So
honor
great.
to be here this morning or tonight or wherever you are. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. And I have a lot of questions to ask you, but let me start with a little bit on your career. You're not a technology yourself, but you really embraced the digital, you embraced the new ways of doing businesses. What did you do at Yahoo or also throughout your career, right? To promote the digital part, to embrace the new technology, to compete against the huge competitors. And I should mention, people, you can put in your questions in the chat and I'll weave them in. Thank you. Rose, please.
Yeah, certainly I am not a technologist, but I always enjoy working on new things, doing things that doesn't have a set rules yet. Also embrace innovative ideas. So like you just mentioned, in my career, when I joined MTV, that was when Taiwan cable television just got legalized. And when I joined Yahoo, that was in year 2000. That was like a really long time ago. So that was also when internet was still a relatively a new thing. So I think I was able to kind of thrive in this kind of new technology or new industry. Was I always I look for industries that fit with my character, not necessarily my skill sets. First of all, I believe we're all like a different species of plants, right? Cactus and water lily are very different. You need a very different environment to have them blossom. For me, I always knew that I like innovative environment, embracing new ideas, and it doesn't yet to have all these rigid bonds, and there's a lot of room for creativity. So when I took on these type of industries, even though I had a zero experience in technology, but I will be able to assemble the right team. This is the key, right? I'm sure no matter back then in my own career or nowadays, almost every industry is facing very complex change, and the changes are taking place so rapidly and at the scale that nobody has the answer for it. So therefore, I think we're all in this era of embracing new. So in order to embrace a new idea, we will have to, kind of having that open-mindedness and knowing that you don't have to have all the answers, but you can create a team and a culture that always are able to get to the answer of things we don't know. Yeah.
That is an amazing, and this is I love it because it's what we are trying to tell our students, right? Because you are at the beginning, a new technology, a new wave, a new change, and that's where our students, our young alumni, starting now. It's a new wave of technology and change and disruption. So your advice, what you did, is so relevant today. Let me ask you, so how do you grow your audience when you enter a new market? Even if you take the technology right, how do you do that?
Yeah, for any new technology to be successful, you have to know what pain point that you want to solve. If you have a real customer pain point and that you can do better than your competition can, then you have opportunity. But in order to get to the audience or get to the user base, if it's a B2C product, that you need to get to the user base. So first of all, really understand what problems you're going to solve and use data to continue to understand how your product is interacting or serving your customers' need. So on a continuous basis, you are able to iterate your product much faster. But definitely, getting an audience is not always that easy, right? There's also time to market. When there are already too many of Me Too's or similar products, then it becomes a lot harder. So constantly looking at even the very small things, but that can really change the user's behavior, or you could really solve their pain point. That's what you have to start, especially when many of us nowadays working, with a new business or startups, they don't have the luxury to kind of boil the ocean all at once. So it's always important to really, really hone into that very important issues or problems that you want to solve with your technology and continue to iterate, continue to innovate. So we have to be, kind of everybody has to be friendly with data. Everybody has to love numbers. Everybody has to be able to interpret what the data is telling us.
So I love what you're talking about, the technology, the data, but then there's the human side about interpreting the data and what to do with it. So what kind of advice would you give to early or mid-career, people who, our students who are graduated, our alumni, everybody is facing the AI. What is the career potential of embracing it? What to do?
I know this is $1 million question, or probably $1 trillion question.
Yes.
Just over the very short period of time, we have seen such advancement of AI that is unheard of, right? So my advice to everyone, especially in the early stage of their career, or any one of us, no matter where you are in an organization, what level you are in, AI is fundamentally going to rewrite a lot of industries. So first of all, my advice is embrace it. AI is here to stay. And the speed of progress or the technology change alongside with AI will only be accelerated, not decelerated. If we thought this world is spinning fast enough, I think it will only spin faster. So you better not be on the side where you're still sitting on the fence and watching, hey, is this good or bad? How is that going to affect my job? Embrace it. AI provides a lot of new technology and new opportunities for everyone in all levels of organizations. Now machine does a much better job analyzing information, synthesizing information as well. So it could help you at in your job to be so much more effective, so much more productive. Also, going back to what we just talked about, data analysis. In the past that I remember, in your company, you have to be able to, kind of write Python in order to do a more advanced analysis. But now there are all kinds of no-code, low-code solutions or tools that make it so much easier for anyone who doesn't have that technical background, but to be able to kind of conduct much more in-depth analysis, as long as you ask the right questions. So I think nowadays we need to embrace the technology. It's actually easy to use. And second, the more you use it, the better that you can understand how to stay on top of it. And third is really train to ask questions because machine does a much better job in like synthesizing streamlining processes and workflows. So let's not try to compete with machines doing that. But machine doesn't know what problems you're going to solve. And that's in here. That's in here that we need to be sharp, really knowing what problems we're really trying to solve and ask the right questions. So I think our workplace will only be more exciting, but try to look at the things, first of all, from the positive side. Embrace it and make yourself not replaceable.
That's amazing advice. And I'm starting to get some questions in. And actually, this is someone who knows you, Roman Pongrax. He says, "Hi, Rose. So great to
Hi, Harman. How are you? Oh my God. This is our Kellogg, my dear Kellogg friend.
Kellogg connection." Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So he writes,
Wow.
"Hi, Rose. So great to see you after all of these years, and congratulations to your achievements." And then
Oh,
he asks, "How do you
absolutely.
view?" So, how do you view the most recent European regulation on AI? As you know, we in Europe are somewhat conservative when it gets to data protection. Hugs, Roman.
Yeah, well, Europe is in the frontier in data protection. Actually, I would say um, our technology is evolving so quickly that beyond I wouldn't even use the word control. It's beyond our comprehension sometimes. We sometimes don't really understand when we use certain technology for certain purposes, but we don't know what are the other downsides or the hidden risks that we probably did not anticipate. So actually, I would say having a more cautious and stringent control of use of data is actually the right thing. I remember in GDPR when it was only published, everybody was kind of bitching about it. Oh my God, how are we going to change this? It's changing a lot of the practices that we've enjoyed. You have all these browser, you can just track, all your behaviors, and then we give you targeted advertising. Just look at how many companies thrive on this convenience of using your data. But nowadays, this changed. And the more we live in this technical world, the more we need to start thinking about, well, we probably cannot just look at the convenience. We need to look at the consequences over the long haul. Especially now with the AIs, we talk about deep fake. We talking about a lot of yeah, like the data arrows, we typing a question, we get a answer that looks smart, but we didn't even know where that information came from, right? So understanding and protecting data, I actually think Europe has done amazing work, leading the world Certainly, I think it certainly also caused a lot of headache for companies to really get a handle. But I think we live in a very complex world right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. And actually, there is another question saying, as a leader, how do you manage to balance between leading and collaborating with others to accept new ideas? So you were talking embracing the new, but how do you convince others to
It's a great
embrace?
question. In my personal experience, this always have to go hand in hand. Nowadays, new ideas, innovative ideas could come from anywhere, right? So it's not necessarily all these great product ideas always come from the product team. So we need to create that kind of culture that promotes psychological safety and collaboration across different silos. Silo has always been a big problem in any organizations, especially when the organization gets larger. It becomes so difficult for people to work across teams. And that is a big hidden costs for any company when it comes to innovation or getting things done. So I would say to try to bring ideas forward, especially new ideas, to get other people to buy in, to build your social capital in a company is very important. So people have to know they can trust you to give you a voice, so they can listen to what you have to say. And then they may not necessarily buying all at once, or you may not necessarily sitting in the highest position that you have all these power to make decision, but you have to work with other people to kind of create that, let me listen to it. Maybe she has a point. Maybe we can get a few more people to assess. Let's collaborate because she or he always has a good reputation of always thinking the company ahead of his or her personal agenda. So I think team collaboration together with your personal brand to be a kind of person that puts company's interest before your own will all help you to bring your innovative ideas forward, no matter in which level you are in the organization. That's my personal experience. And I remember very clearly when I tried to create an e-commerce business out of Taiwan, which the entire Yahoo family did not, kind of succeed in e-commerce. And that was early days when I was only a very small market Taiwan general manager. And I joined company only for 2 years. But I saw such an opportunity when eBay announced an acquisition in Taiwanese market. So I figured if I didn't do my homework, eBay must have done their homework. So I knew the market is ready. And what we had back then was the #1 portal. So we had a huge traffic, we had users' trust. Therefore, that I see that was an opportunity. But it was not easy for global team to listen to a non-technical new general manager from Taiwan to tell them all of a sudden say, hey, we want to be eBay. They really thought I was crazy. But but it was after a lot of persuasion and hard work, and at the same time, the accumulation of some, human capital and social capital, I was given a go. So I want to take my personal experience. If someone who didn't have any technical background was able to kind of create a business from, something that people didn't ever believe it was possible, it's possible for you as well.
Rosa, I actually love your answer because this is why we are having conversation with Kellogg Leaders, because it's great to hear the culture so reflected in your style of leadership and in your advice and how it helped you go through it. I always say that the best advertising for us, for the attracting student, is really showcasing people like you and see how you embody the Kellogg spirit. So that's great.
Thank you. Yeah, I really love Kellogg spirit, the Kellogg culture, especially the team, always put the team before individuals. I think that just, it's so practical, and it was, and it still is, and it will always be. Because we're solving harder and harder, more and more complex questions these days, and that you will have to take the team efforts to be able to succeed.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now I have another question. It says, "Hi, Rose and Francesca. I'm Jean Quinn, MTVN's first SVP of Online and Interactive TV and part of Tom Freston's executive team
Oh, Tom Preston.
97 to 2000. One of the biggest challenges was educating the network presidents about the value of digital audience migration to web-based
Oh.
delivery of MTV, VH1, and Nickelodeon. Now, he has a specific question, which says, "Rose, given your background, how do you describe Gen Z, Alpha, and younger consumers embracing new technology in consuming entertainment and driving commerce around content?"
Well, I think nowadays we look at each of the generation quickly has its own new breeds of um, uh, digital media, their favorite. Back at our time, we had Yahoo and then we have Facebook. Now, Instagram is probably for millennials. So for the Gen Z, it's all TikTok, right? It's a short video, it's a reels, it's a threads. It is true, our younger generations are very accustomed to visual, very quick, and very direct communication. So that also it kind of creates a very different expectation for what entertainment or what media has to be, right? In the past, you have the whole 60 minutes to talk about issue, but now you have 140 characters. You have a 140 characters to describe your political view, right? So it's a very different. Does it have a problem? I personally definitely think that there is a huge problem when a lot of ideas don't necessarily get to fully discussed. And it could be just kind of snippets, and everybody can just have such a headline type of um, uh, description to discuss something much more complex. But we have to figure out in such a media consumption behavior where not only they're 100% that all their time is on digital, and they're very influenced by what they've seen. So they also don't believe in establishments or traditional authority anymore. They rather believe in the people that they follow. So this is all making media entertainment a very complete, very different landscape. So we need to really keep pace with it. At the same time, I think if you are a media, you still have to ask yourselves what is right, and how can you preserve value while everything is going shorter and getting shallower. So hopefully the technology could also help us to always have the ability to present more than just one singular view. So having the echo chamber effect is really harming the society, in my opinion.
It's so important. And I do have my own question, but there are so many questions coming in. There was a question said, "What was the biggest challenges you had launching e-commerce in a market which was considered relatively smaller than some of the other markets? And what surprised you?"
Um, Especially when it comes to a global company, resource allocation is always, very important. And from the headquarter perspective, there are always more important priorities to take care of than addressing a potential business opportunities in a smaller market. It's a common challenge in any global company. But I think when you are on the side of international market, when you're sitting in the international market and wearing that hat, you just have to build your presence in the headquarters. So I believe in any leader, you have to quickly or start building your personal brand. Your personal brand, what does your brand represent? And the brand is not just your personality, your character, but what is it, your brand that contributes to the company's success? So I personally found, even though small markets has a smaller voice, generally speaking, but you can also turn the table to persuade your headquarter that actually, if there's anything goes wrong, it's not also going to be a big damage. But you could take a small market as a test market. Okay, really contain a lot of learnings from a smaller market and learn to amplify that in a bigger markets. That's the strategy that I used pretty successfully, not only e-commerce, and I also built a product. It's called Knowledge Plus, and then later on that became Answers at Yahoo in the US. So we created something from Taiwan first and learn a lot of things that we continuously sharing that with the US team, with the American team. So be proactive. Don't limit yourself in thinking I'm only a small market, who will listen to me? Nobody cares. I'm always the first one to get cut. I don't get resources. Although it's probably true, but don't lose face as long as, right? And as long as you always build compelling cases, and once you succeed, then they will be a lot easier to have the next opportunity. And that's how I was able to basically build Yahoo Taiwan, almost became a empire, the biggest internet company in Taiwan. And then the whole team got noticed by the headquarter, and the headquarter leveraged a lot of things or talents in Taiwan for the rest of the world.
I love how you took a weakness and transformed it into a strength. I love that. And it's okay, someone else that is actually writing a question. This is Charles Kwai saying, Rose, congratulations on graduating to Career 4.0 and becoming bestseller writer. And,
Oh, these are all my friends.
and it says that yes, my questions. How should our Kellogg leaders prepare themselves as global leaders more in an increasingly decisive world filled with fast changes in technology and complex geopolitics? How we navigate that?
I would say on the personal front, you just have to try. You just have to put yourself in this fast changing world. Don't take the easy route and to just pick the easy job. Well, sooner or later, there's not that many easy jobs anymore. So try to be global and connected with the global business. So no matter where we are in any of the market, try to challenge ourselves. And the second is, even if your own job does not allow you to or does not provide such an opportunity, Kellogg Network is a huge network. So how do we leverage our global network to make sure we are really not just navel gazing and only cares about our little single market? So we need to develop ourselves to have a fuller grasp of what's happening in the world, because the world, although we have all these geopolitical divide, but however, the world is still hugely connected. Anything that happens in one thing has all these downstream effect, and this butterfly effect is still happening. So I think no matter we are in the school, we're out of the school, we should never stop learning and always connected closely through our network or through our jobs to be relevant in the global scheme. And we can
It's
always
very, very
connect
good.
with Charles. Charles is amazing. He's an amazing international leader from Kellogg.
All our Kellogg alumni are everywhere.
Absolutely.
Let me
Yeah.
ask you also, the tech world has been famously unwelcoming women and minorities. In the US, a lot of people are talking about it. And you probably encountered people along the way who doubted your capabilities. How did you handle the doubters?
Well, I try to be blind to gender differences at work, but that doesn't mean that they aren't, right? I am pretty certain they were circumstances or, that I presented certain ideas that wasn't as supported because of who I was. So when something like that happened, I quickly switched that off of my mind. I would let that thought, I would not let that thought dwell on me. And start kind of labeling that as, oh, I'm being discriminated because I'm Asian, I'm a woman, I'm a non-tech, blah, 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 right? Rather, I will take it as an issue itself. I wanted to convince somebody who doesn't seem to understand me or who doesn't seem to um, who seems to belittle my ideas. I take that as a neutral problem statement. Leave the emotions out of the equation. Solve that problem. Even solving that problem may evolve in getting to know this person, changing his perception about yourself, including, persuading this person with other people who or she or he trusted. So solving a problem as a problem. Don't overcloud it with this emotional interpretation. That's my advice to myself. And then after that, you leave that out of your door and solving a problem in the most genuine and most collaborative approach, you will build a lot of friendship. Later on, you will find these kind of obstacles will be less and less because the people know you better, people understand you, and people see what you can do for them. And then, these kind of misperception will go away gradually. So that's my approach. Don't get into the kind of negative emotional interpretation of the difficulties and challenges because we deal with challenges every day.
That's amazing. I love the positive attitude. Now I can see the Kellogg network throughout the world getting in action, and this is Hope Woolman who says, "Hi, Rose.
Oh, I
What an
hope.
amazing career you what an amazing career you have had and are still enjoying. Leticia, Guillaume, Marcel, and I missed you on the Camino. Now, the question
Oh,
is, was there a single inflection career that really catapulted your trajectory? Or was there a huge supporter or mentor that really helped your career? Sending you hugs from the Midwest. So,
yeah. I will probably say it's Yahoo, but I think in order for me to land the Yahoo job in the year 2000 from someone who is completely, non-technical, I would say when I was 32, I had the opportunity to become general manager for Yahoo Taiwan was the start of my tipping point. Prior to that, I was marketing by training. So I was the head of marketing for Taiwan, and then later on, I moved to Singapore. But I ran a very small team of 5 people only, but only because the Taiwan GM at that time, left the company. But I had a really strong bonding with the rest of the Asia headquarters, and they saw what I was able to accomplish as a marketer. The Asia chairman asked me, Rose, would you consider to become Taiwan general manager? I was 32 years old. I only worked for MTV for 2 years. I only managed 5 people. Then there is a whole market of 60, 70 people, including production, including marketing, network, everything, from soup to nuts. And thank God that I said yes. When someone had the faith in you, even though that I had no idea what to do to become a general manager or to become a successful one, but I took the challenge. So I would say that tipping point is really to step forward when there's an opportunity coming our way, kind of embrace it. And I really learned a lot by, kind of that quick transition from having never led a sales team one day before to all of a sudden I have to help the company to turn around to break even, where the company was losing money before that I took on. It took me only 2 years. I turned around the business. So I would say that experience, that say yes experience, say yes first, and then later on, you can build all these gap that you have, and also you can build a team that has all the skill sets that I didn't have. That also gave me a fantastic experience in trusting your team. You can do anything when you have a right team. Even though that I didn't have the experience, but together that we were able to do. I think that really created the next opportunity for me to be considered as a general manager for Yahoo. And then I had an amazing 20 years at Yahoo, from running Taiwan to Asia. And then that last that I ran all businesses outside North America. So something that I've never expected before.
So that's very interesting. So what you're describing is really a bold move you did, and you wrote a book encouraging people to make a bold career moves. Let me start by asking, what inspired you to write the book? What 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 was your
Yeah.
goal and that?
Yeah, the book title is Don't Be Afraid, Just Say Yes. Okay. So um I I was very blessed that I had a really interesting career that I enjoy every day at work. Every day I woke up and I couldn't wait to go to go to office, and I could work long hours, but I enjoy what I did. And I also felt it was very fulfilling. But then later on that I noticed a lot of people in many companies, or especially younger ones, they did not enjoy work at all. I was really surprised to see how many people were finding work or job. It's just a job. It was a kind of, not exciting, very limiting, and they didn't find there new opportunity. They didn't find there's enough growth. So all those negative thoughts. So then I say, what made my career and my 20, 30 year of a career so interesting? So I wanted to share. A lot of times that we always look outside and say, hey, I'm not as lucky. I didn't go to Kellogg, so I didn't get that job, right? But I rather, kind of look inside. A lot of times that because of our attitude, because we have so many fears in our mind that prohibit us for taking challenges. So I think in that book, I share a lot of my stories, good or bad, successful or painful ones. But mostly, I want to encourage people, just really when opportunity comes, don't be afraid. You can only grow by growing. You can only grow by moving forward. Just status quo, staying where you are, is not going to get you anywhere. So this kind of attitude, that I found it was very rewarding, that I heard so many people came to me after reading my book and said I inspired him or her, no matter at work or being a mom, or to just believe before they see it happen. Believe first. Believe there's a possibility, and be bold. Go take that challenge. So It's been an incredible journey for me to being a writer. Probably the first book and the last book as well.
Well, that's been amazing to I really need the English version though, so I can read it myself. But I've been hearing a bit about it. And in a way, like you're saying, right, like that's why you're encouraging. But during your career, right, and you talked about your really empathetic leadership style and talking about team, how do you encourage the others around you to grow into bigger roles?
Right. Um, I think that being a leader, first of all, we have to think right. If we have the right idea about what leadership is and how do we be successful, not just for us to be successful, but in order for us to be successful, we have to let people around us to be successful. Um, what does that mean? That means if we want smart people, driven people, motivated people, talented people working with us, we have to think empathetic, thinking if you are one of them, what kind of boss do you want to work with, right? You definitely don't want someone who doesn't trust you, who will penalize you once you make a little mistake, who doesn't allow you to speak truthfully, who will only reward you when you have the same idea as his or hers, right? We have a lot of expectation for what a good leader or what a good boss is for us. Then I try to be that good boss myself because I know that's the only way to attract and to retain and to nurture great talents. And without good talents, we will never be able to go very far. Even our success would be very limited. So if you want to accomplish extraordinary things, you have to have extraordinary people working with you. And extraordinary people don't work with someone who doesn't doesn't appreciate them, doesn't empower them, doesn't give them opportunity to thrive, always try to take their spotlight. You will never be able to attract talents, top talents to work with you if you're being that type of supervisor. So that I I think I always try to empathize. If I were them, or if I am one of the talent, what kind of person do I want to work with, and try to be that one.
Yes, that's amazing. So inspirational. And I want to talk also you last part of your career. Right now, you're now on several boards of
Yeah,
directors, and we know that you probably wouldn't have sat still and you led the amazing thing. For example, you led the effort to digitalize Operation and World Vision Taiwan. So more in
yeah.
general, how you contribute, what do you enjoy about these roles?
Yeah. So after I decided to quit my Yahoo career after 20 years, nothing was wrong, but I just feel like I've had it. That was enough. So I left the corporate job, and one of the many things that I started to pick up is to work in the NGO. So I became the chairperson of World Vision Taiwan. World Vision is one of the global um, um, uh, child support charity organization worldwide. And Taiwan, World Vision is probably one of the biggest NGO in Taiwan. So when I took on the chairperson role, because my digital background, I wanted to challenge the idea that a lot of people always thought NGO, don't expect NGO to take on new technology. NGO kind of just expected it to be traditional, slower, and not as effective and not productive, all that, kind of negative thoughts. But I think on the contrary, because we took money from the public, we actually have more responsibility and accountability to make the best use of every resource that we gather from the public. So, and the world is moving digital. if we didn't have the digital infrastructure to make our co-workers to be more efficient at work, no matter, from service the children, service the family, to marketing, to every work, we will be obsolete. And then we will not be productive, and then we will not be good shepherd. We will not be the good custody of these money. So being on the board, a lot of times that people see kind of board is just kind of supervisory or just checking, making sure things don't go wrong. But I think I rather to really bring the very important strategic change through the board. And that's how I kick it off, doing a digital transformation, starting with the steering committee, and I chair that committee. So there's our CEO, and we have the right people in the room together. So I would say similarly in the corporate boards, my expectation for myself is more than just kind of checking the report. I always wanted to understand the company's business and what is it that the company's strategy or the opportunities that they are. For example, nowadays a lot of Taiwanese corporations are going global, right? No matter manufacturing or the whole business go to market is going global. So it's a very big shift when you have a Chinese-based manufacturing side. Everything is the same language, no matter China or Taiwan. But then now you're building factories in India, in Mexico, in Europe, in the US, and you hire very diverse people. So the workforce has changed. So therefore I very much would love to contribute to the diversity conversation of those companies that I served. I think no matter serving on the board or being executive, we both can, these are the most senior position, the most influential roles. We should take it really seriously and make it a big impact.
That's really inspirational, Rose, and it's so amazing. Now we are starting to get. I want to be inundated by questions, so I already apologize to people. I won't be able to get all the questions. There were two questions. Were a bit on the same. Let's say similar. It's about knowing right now, right? What you know right now. What would you have told her back at the beginning, or also what would you have done differently? What key lessons have you learned? Like relooking at it with all you know now at the beginning of your career, what would you tell yourself?
Knowing what I know today, I probably would tell Rose when at 22, 25, know more about technology. Really get well versed with
Interesting.
Yes, because the world, the technology is really defining a lot of transformation in the society and in the world or any industry. So no matter marketing, finance, anything. So with a bit of more knowledge on how technology works is really going to be instrumental. So that is one. And the second, I would probably say, yes, go work in any other country, learn about the world. So don't only sit in your comfortable country. If there are opportunities, especially when you're younger, go explore. So these are probably the two things I would tell myself.
That's amazing. And there was also a question, what's your next venture? What is actually I should see, knowing you, I should say venture ventures, plural, because I don't
Adventures.
think you can sit still yet.
Yeah, well, right now I really enjoy where I am now. I serve on multiple corporate boards. I also serve in the church. I serve in an NGO, and I also mentor startups. Um, and I have a little bit of free time for myself. So this is a really good combination. Maybe the next thing I will think is how do I use the social media to share a lot of these ideas more structurally and because I really see there's a lot of need, especially in among the younger people they're looking for role models, they're looking for advice to help them to navigate their career, and I'm very happy to do that. So my next venture may be something along those lines.
That's amazing. I look forward. They will definitely have a lot to say. And, I have to ask you, because we've had so question about people who knew you. How do you stay connected to the Kellogg community?
Oh, now I know this is the best way to stay connected with Kellogg community. To talk with the Dean Francesca. Uh, yeah, I'm really happy that I still keep a very close contact with many of my Kellogg friends. In fact, that in October, I'm going to Tokyo to meet with many of them. One of them is my roommate, Miho. Miho and I have stayed in touch. After we graduated from Kellogg, we never stopped connecting with one another. So Kellogg is very unique because the culture is very different. Not all the business school friends like us wanted to connect with one another because we had so much learning, growing, and fun together. Roman probably remember how many times we got drunk together. So, so these are all great. So, I would love to be able to stay connected with our friends worldwide. And that's just like I said, we have a powerful global network. Just within Kellogg, there's enough for us to grow and to develop a relationship.
That's an amazing. Thank you so much for saying that. And I have to ask you though now, because before we finish, what about the pop singer part? How did that start?
Well, that was when I was young, much, much younger. It was like young people always felt that they wanted to do more. They wanted to have extraordinary life. I was just like that. I felt just working at an ad agency wasn't exciting enough. So I feel like, oh, just contact reports. There must be something more interesting. So a friend of mine introduced me to do audition, and I passed. So I had one track in a compilation back then. Back then there were still CDs, right? So so I had a compilation. But I didn't choose to pursue that for a full-time career. I was given the opportunity to become a full-time singer, but then I decided, life has too many interesting things, and I don't want to get bogged down just by being a singer. So I'm glad. Otherwise, I would never be able to go to Kellogg. I would never be able to have such a extraordinary experience like I enjoyed.
Yeah, I am glad too. So our paths could cross, and
I'm sure we
um,
will.
yeah, but I feel like this is so exemplify of the kind of students we want to attract. They're like you. They come and they sing and they dance and they create this entire
Yes,
show.
I was on a special K. I don't
Oh,
know
you
what
were on the special
I
K,
was on a
yes.
special K.
I am not surprised.
That was so much fun.
Yes. So, if you had to sit, like, is there, just want to ask you very briefly because I know we have to finish, but Is there a moment, something that you remember from Kellogg that you took away, from the classroom, from the other students? Maybe it's the special K.
Well, it's really the student body. I would say Kellogg really opened my eyes to the world. I came from Taiwan. Kellogg really opened my eyes. So I connected. I met so many talented people from around the world. I would say that diversity of our student body, at the same time, they're not just smart, they're good, smart people. And they're fun, good, smart people. And that culture and that spirit really, really enhanced me and make all the difference. I would say if I ever had the courage to take on international global career, I will have to thank Kellogg for it. Really. I say it sincerely.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been such an amazing conversation. I had high expectation. You beat them all. You so, represent really, what a Kellogg leader should be. Your empathy, your energy, your enthusiasm, your ability to embrace, new technology, not be scared, bold moves. My only complaint is I need my version in English. I'll put some MBA
Okay, working on
translate.
it. ChatGPT. Thank you so much. I'm
Absolutely,
really honored to
absolutely.
be here.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much,
Thank you for
Rose,
all the questions.
for joining us. Thank you.
Great.
And
Thank you.
everybody, wherever you are, see you soon. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye. Cheers.